This is an open letter for Uncle Sam. I love you, man. Here's the thing, Uncle Sam. Um, you're. It's a. This letter is about Afghanistan. Uh, Uncle Sam. What I think about Afghanistan is that Afghanistan should be left alone. Totally alone. Just pretend, Uncle Sam, that you don't see Afghanistan. In fact, I think it's best if Uncle Sam, your managers, pretend that they don't see the rest of the planet. Just manage Uncle Sam's business within Uncle Sam's borders. I'm sure Uncle Sam's citizens can use Uncle Sam's resources a lot better. I'm sure Uncle Sam's citizens are more in need of Uncle Sam's resources than, other places on planet Earth. Here is why I say this. Are the Taliban, are they primitive? Yes. Are they cannibals? Probably. Are they obnoxious religious fundamentalists? Yes, of course. Would I want to be associated with them? No, not at all. Would I want to be anywhere close to them? Not at all. Do I agree with anything they stand for? Absolutely not. But in that part of the world, on top of the mountains in Afghanistan, there are many people who understand the language of the Taliban, understand the harshness of Taliban. They get it. They get Taliban. Do I get Taliban? No. But that's because I never lived on the mountaintops of Afghanistan. That's because where I lived was which is 10 times, 100 times less conservative than the Taliban, but it was still too conservative for me. The thing is, Uncle Sam, not everybody wants to be liberated. Not everybody is liberal. The Amish, although they live in your land, Uncle Sam, but they don't want to be liberal. They don't want to be liberated. They don't understand what you mean by liberal and liberated and, modern and democracy and all of that. Amish can care less. Don't want to follow, don't understand, don't care what you have to say or what you have to sell. Uncle Sam, the Amish, you can say in one way that the Amish in United States do not want to buy what you have to sell, what you have for sale. Even the Amish don't want to buy, and the Amish live on your land. So there are always pockets of conservatism around the world who like the way they are. You want to call them retarded, you want to call them backward, you want to call them fundamentalists, you want to call them whatever fuck you want to call them. They are what they are. And no amount of force is going to change them. In fact, when you apply force, it gets the opposite effect, because these cocksuckers will think that they're actually on the right path because they're being, forced by what they consider as forces of demonic forces, that these demonic forces are trying to push them out of the right path. I don't know, but the reality is Taliban speak the same language, the same conservative language that is spoken in that part of the world, more or less. And civilization has to start from somewhere. My civilization, your civilization, all our civilization started from the caves. It started from the fucking caves. Well, the Taliban, the Afghans are much closer to the caves, the level of the cave civilization, than they are to your level of civilization. But by bombing them, you're not going to take them out of cave, because by bombing them, they seek shelter more and more, deeper and deeper into their caves. This cave is literal physical caves that are many of which is present in Afghanistan. You can take that as a literal meaning that the conservatives are going to shelter deeper and deeper into their caves if you continue bombing them. Or you can take that literally, or you can take that metaphorically. The conservatives are going to become more and more conservative because you're bombing them into the Stone Age. You see what I'm saying? You by bombing them, you're destroying more and more of whatever that makes that shithole, gives it a little modern tinge, gives some modern tinge in that shithole. So you're bombing those, things that even gives them a slight modern hue, and therefore you destroy even that modern hue that the place has. So literally, physically, metaphorically, these fuckers will go deeper and deeper into their literal caves and into their metaphorical conservative caves. So bombing them is not going to bring them out of caves, what I'm trying to say. Bombing them is not going to, bring them into modernity. It just keeps sending them back and back and back into their deeper and deeper conservative caves. Uncle Sam, just stop helping. Let's put it this way. Stop helping. Because you frighten these conservatives and they become even more conservative. So by just leaving them alone, leave Afghans alone, don't embargo them, don't close the door on them, don't sanction them, just leave them alone. In fact, if you want to change them, try to become their friends. If you really want them to not continue to be so conservative, try to become their friends. Not by bombing them. Nobody bombs friends. By giving them better trade status. Allow the Taliban, which apparently is the strongest, most fundamentalist and the strongest force there in Afghanistan, allow them to take over. Allow them to take over. Oh, okay. You're responsible now. You took over, now you're responsible. Okay, now let's have dinner. And when are you free to have dinner? Give them most favored trade status. Trade with them. See if they will accept to take some tourists in Afghanistan. See if they want some teachers in Afghanistan. You can change people from conservative into liberal much better through friendship than you can through war. This is obvious. This is very obvious with anybody with just a little more brains than George W. Bush. For anybody with just a little more brains, more cognitive power than George W. Bush, it's obvious that you can, if the objective is to change these conservative cocksuckers and bring them into light, into 21st century on Earth, you can change them, you can affect them for the better, you can elevate them by trading with them more, by talking with them more, by exchanging people with them more than you can by shooting at them, bombing them, forcing them, sanctioning them, embargoing them. Period. Doesn't take a genius to understand this. It doesn't. And unfortunately, time and time again, Uncle Sam does the same thing, and apparently the people of Uncle Sam are willing to go along with it. I give you one example. Vietnam. What they were was unacceptable to Uncle Sam. So Uncle Sam convinced 350 million citizens to go to war with a country of 30, 40, 50 million by the name of Vietnam in Southeast Asia. After so many years of trying to force them into changing their economic system, their form of government, whatever was the purpose of the Vietnam War, obviously it wasn't successful. But have you noticed that since you left them alone and they managed their own thing and pretended as if Vietnam doesn't exist, they managed their own thing for so many decades, and slowly you befriended them, you send them some tourists, you send them some teachers, some tourists, they learned English slowly over time, and they evolve out of that conservative mindset, and now you can count on Vietnam as being somewhat of a friend to Uncle Sam. At least not an enemy. That Vietnam example shows it very clearly that the solution to Vietnam was not trying to go in and force them into being your friend, not force them into modernity, not force them into changing their government or their economical system. It was just pulling out and let them live however they like to live, with just a thread of friendship, as if like, okay, if you need trade, if you want to trade, we are okay with trading with you. We are not going to sanction you, we are not going to embargo you. If you want to trade, we will trade with you. If you will accept our tourists, we will send you tourists. That's all. Have a nice day. You're setting up the situation to be friends. You're not trying to rape them, you're trying to date them. And eventually, after many decades, they may want to date you. But what happened in Vietnam War was that, no, we don't want to date you, we want to rape you. We want to change you by force. And we saw the results. So many people from both sides and so much more Vietnamese died. For what? because Uncle Sam's managers think, a forceful endeavor would bring them closer to their objective? Are you fucking kidding me? And that's the reason why intelligent people, intellectual people should be in charge of the executive seat in every country, including Uncle Sam's land, because any intellectual understand that you can't, force people in having sex with you. That would be rape, and it will not end well. You just, have to let them know that you're interested and give them time. If they're interested, they will date you. If they're not, they're not. But eventually, if you got a big penis, as Uncle Sam does, eventually people are interested in dating Uncle Sam. It's just as simple as that. It's because Uncle Sam wields so much power. Without coercion, Uncle Sam can date everybody. Without coercion, there's no need for Uncle Sam to show forcefulness in order to, have sex, in order to, make friends. Uncle Sam wields a lot of power. So if you leave people alone, if you leave nations alone, eventually nations would want to date you because, they get a lot of perks out of dating Uncle Sam. It's as simple as that. There is no need for the use of force. When you use force, you become a bad empire. When you date people, you become a good empire. It's as simple as that. When you leave people alone until people approach you and suggest dating, then Uncle Sam can, can have a good time. Everybody can have a good time. Uncle Sam, the same applies for the Cubans, the same applies to the Venezuelans, the same applies to the Iranians, the same applies to the Iraqis, the same applies to the North Koreans. If you like to see a change, you cannot see the change within your allotted time. You should leave these countries alone. Don't put them under pressure. Don't sanction them. Don't embargo them. Don't exclude them. Don't send them to bed without dinner. All you can do is do your own thing. Let them do their own thing. And suggest that you sit down. Let them trade. Let them do business with anybody they want. Eventually, and suggest from time to time that you want to send them some tourists. You want to do some business with them. You want to trade with them. Give them favored trading status. And see, eventually after a while, the ice will melt. You can sit down, talk, and have a good time. And become best of friends. Again, and same thing with China. Same thing with China. You cannot, forceful endeavor will not work. The bigger the opponent, the bigger the threat, the more problematic will be trying to apply any kind of forceful endeavor, any kind of pressure by force. The only solution is, hey, you do your thing, I do my thing, there's no sanctions, no embargoes, no nothing. Whenever you want to talk, we are ready to talk. We are okay with trade. we trade whenever you want. In fact, because I feel I don't understand you, I'm going to trade with you even more. End of story. I want to send you some tourists. I want to send some teachers over there to teach the locals English. Uncle Sam, you can, it's an old saying, it's in English language. You can catch more, more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. It's as simple as that. I don't. So with regards to Afghanistan, simple. Let the Taliban take over. Stop bombing them. Stop making enemies. They're fundamentalists. Yes, I know. They're shit. I know. But let them take power. Let them bring some kind of security and stability in that shithole. Some kind of security and stability. Let them start, because civilization starts with security and stability. And the reason Afghans are, the reason Taliban are the ones to bring security and stability in that shithole is that Taliban soldiers are cheap. Because they are mostly Taliban soldiers are cheap because they're mostly paid in ideological currency. When your soldiers are, are okay to get paid $1 a day, but promise 72 virgins in the afterlife, then the soldier becomes very cheap. But if the soldier wants 72 virgins right now, that's an expensive soldier. That's an expensive soul. You see, the problem with having the Western soldiers in Afghanistan is that the mercenaries from Blackwater and now the academy, that's those mercenaries that Mr. Prince is raising. They want 72 virgins here, or equivalent money to get 72 virgins in this world. The Taliban soldier gets paid $1 a day in this world and is promised 72 virgins in the other afterlife. So that kind of soldier is very cheap to get. They're not very sophisticated, but running Afghanistan doesn't need a sophisticated operation. It's a shithole. You don't need a sophisticated operation to run Afghanistan. So their soldiers are very cheap. They're paid $1 a day and promised 72 virgins in heaven. So these soldiers are very cheap, therefore they are the one who can bring some kind of order to Afghanistan. Because they have the cheapest soldiers possible, because these soldiers are the most ideological ones. Ideological, you can get ideological soldiers very cheaply. Those are the cheapest soldiers to get when they're fighting not for money but for some kind of ideology. So the point is this: because they have a lot of cheap, they have been able to put together a lot of cheap soldiers, they are the one who can bring order to Afghanistan, because they have a lot of people under them. They have a lot of cheap soldiers in their possession. So they are in a position to bring, if there is anybody who can bring order in that shithole, it's going to be the Taliban. So let them take control, bring order. Order is the prerequisite for civilization. Let them bring order. Let them start the civilization. if you want to do good, Uncle Sam. This is what I'm saying. If the purpose is to do good, let these cocksuckers bring some kind of peace or order and security with their abundance of cheap soldiers. Then sit down with no preconditions. Sit down and say, just how much business can I send your way? I want to sell, I want to buy whatever you have to sell. From shoes to belts to whatever you have to sell, I want to buy. That's the only way out of the situation. And then second, I want to send you tourists. My people like to visit your country, tourists. And then subsidize American tourists going to Afghanistan. Kids right out of high school. Here you go, kids. You get $2,000 a month if you go and live in Afghanistan, age 19, age 18, right out of high school. $2,000 a month salary if you go to live in Afghanistan. As simple as that. Let the young kids change Afghanistan by, not by guns, but by interacting with the fucking people of the shithole. As simple as that. Let the young, energetic American, idealist, energetic kids from America go to Afghanistan, not with guns, but with beach umbrellas, and let these energetic kids change that shithole slowly, over time, over decades. You sit down after Taliban stop bombing the Taliban, then you sit down after they take full control, and you say, okay, you like money, right? You tell Taliban you like money, right? You need money to run this shithole, right? Okay, we, Uncle Sam, will buy whatever you have to sell. And by the way, we want to send some tourists here. Our people want to come and see your shithole. Is that okay? They're going to bring money with them, and they're going to spend money in your shithole. Are you okay with that? They're going to shake their head and have a big smile on their fucking face. They're going to agree. They're going to agree to trade. They're going to agree with tourists. That's all you need. Trade and tourism. Trade and tourism. You can change any country, any group of people, any shithole with trade and tourism. You can change them. You can, because you can change, people much better as a friend with a smile on your face, and when you spend money in their shithole, you can change them, make more friends out of them than you can by kicking their ass and forcing them to go hungry. Same goes with the Iranians, Uncle Sam. Same goes with the Cubans. Same goes with Venezuelan. In reality, if you want to make friends with them, stop forcing them to go hungry. Give them the most favored trading status. China, stop picking fights with them. Send them tourists. Trade with them, as you have been doing. Uncle Sam, there is nothing good comes out of the fact that when you walk up to people and say, my way or no way. That's a stupid shit that only a intellectually incompetent ass like George W. Bush can think of. My way or the highway, either you're with us or you're with the enemy. That's only an intellectually retarded entities such as George W. Bush or his father or Reagan or or these incompetent people or Trump. Only an intellectually retarded people would say my way or the highway. There is no proof that your way is the best way. There is no proof of that. Other people also have ideas, other beliefs, other way of living. No executive power of the most powerful military system of the world should ever be that intellectually incompetent to say my way or the highway. It's just mad. That's when the empire goes from a good empire to a bad empire. Leave Taliban around, let them take over, bring some kind of fucking stability in that shithole, and then try to give them as much trade as they can handle and as much tourists as they can handle, and leave it to time. Cuba, Iran, the same thing. Give them as much trade as they can handle, send them as much tourists as they can handle, and leave it to time. Eventually all of them will become as friendly to Uncle Sam as Vietnam has become. End of story. Folks, it's not that difficult. If you stop spending money with Raytheon, McDonnell Douglas, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, if you stop spending money with them and start spending that money on importing goods from these shitholes, eventually there won't be any need for those gun manufacturers. Or those gun manufacturers, those arms manufacturers can just, go into the business of space.